Check out some of our favorite tips and combinations for painting organic mediums like war ponies.
Spiky bits.
Sometimes painting organic shapes like horses or demon princes or anything with skin that isn't quite human, it can be a little bit daunting. So today I'm going to show you how to use the Army Painter system, working up from just a base color, maybe working in a couple of shades, either by dry brushing or airbrushing, and using the Army Painter washes and the quick shade to really get in there and shade it up to the point where you can just put it on the tabletop, come back and highlight it later. So let's take a look. Man, let me tell you what, I was actually intimidated by this project at first because painting organic anything is a lot more difficult than you would think. When you're painting a Space Marine, it's all armor. You can trim it out, you can wash it. It's actually a lot easier. When you get these organic shapes like demon princes, maybe not so much on the G-dub side of things, but there's always armor and there's ways to kind of cheat and break up the monotony. But with these Death Riders of Krieg, then you don't really have that. You don't have those cheats. I mean, you got the dude, and we've shown you how to paint these guys, so we're not really going to super focus on the guys here. We'll put the link below in the video on how to paint Glaze. We showed you a couple different great ways with some wash techniques and stuff on how to paint these guys right here. But what we're going to show you today is painting these organic colors, such as ponies, such as any sort of mount for like Age of Sigmar, with the larger Beast Claw Riders that we did. That was all fur, so that was all broken up too. This is just flat organic space that we really need to focus on here. So we've fast forwarded ahead and already base coated the project, because you don't need to see me watch, or you don't need to watch me base coat something with the airbrush right here. We're gonna airbrush base this whole model with a color from Privateer Press called Monster Brown. Now, if you don't have an airbrush, that's okay too. You could always just grab their spray that they have as well. I think it's a leather brown spray. It kind of doesn't matter at this point, so if you just want to use a spray, and then you'll have to dry brush for the rest of the steps instead of airbrushing, but the definition will be there and you'll be able to make it look right, in my opinion. But this tutorial for the most part is going to cover airbrushing, because that's just what we do here and that's how all our stuff looks. So we're just going to kind of go with it. So we're going to airbrush the nice base coat of Monster Brown on here. I also did reds at the top because we're going to do our red workup that you've probably already seen on this channel. It's just the reds from Army Painter as well. Very, very simple and easy. Dragon red, pure red, and another, oops, there it is. So it's chaotic red, dragon red, and pure red, and a little bit of orange at the very top to kind of make that ketchup and mustard-esque color blended in. But we're not worried about that right now. What I want to do is show you how to paint this pony, this war pony here. So coat all of that first in your base coat color. Then you're going to want to give everything a spray varnish of gloss medium from Model Masters. Now, this gloss spray is very important that you use this one, because you can spray it in almost any atmospheric conditions. I live in the South, it's very hot here, very humid, but I can take this outside, spray it down, set it outside to dry, and as long as I follow the directions, I think it's about 9 inches away or something like that, 10 to 12 inches away, usually it works out just fine. Don't use it in a dusty garage, always make sure you got a lot of ventilation. Once all that dries, you'll get to this step right here where we're actually gonna start painting. So after your gloss varnish has been applied, now we're going to give the model a wash before we continue airbrushing. So I have poured out some of the strong tone from Army Painter here. Now this is the same as Agrax Earthshade if you want to go the G-dub route, but this is a lot cheaper by about $1 or so. So I've been using the Army Painter technicals a lot more here lately, because to be quite honest, I think they're just a better product. Quick shade wash mixing medium is the way you can actually thin down and make these washes from Army Painter not quite as strong. So we're going to add about 50-50 for a wash to this. And when you're doing this, you want to make it look almost like chocolate milk. And that's kind of what we're going for here, like some really dark chocolate milk and that will be the correct mixture. So we got it right about 50-50 right there. So that's what we wanted to see. After we get that wash ready, then we're gonna grab a nice chisel brush. I love my chisel brushes. This is a Slow Fuse Gaming Bomb Wick utility brush. We also have that fat one I just showed you right here. Either one of these is great for this. They also make, Army Painter makes chisel brushes. I just don't happen to have them. So I can't show you that one, but this chisel brush will get the job done too. It's a synthetic and stuff. So now we're gonna go a little heavy here on the model. We're just going to, I'm not even gonna take any off of this brush. We're just gonna get in here, we're gonna glop it on. Starting at the top, let gravity do its thing, because gravity does what gravity does. Get around the ears, get all around the reins here, and just work it down and into all of the muscles, leaving it nice and gloppy, but we don't wanna be too gloppy here. So what's gonna happen is, it's gonna dry up naturally as long as you don't get it any thicker than what you see right here. But because what I really like about the quick shade washing medium is that you really have to put a lot in there to make it super gloppy and runny. So we've got this nice consistency. It just looks like, hey, it's wet, but it's not drenched. And that is perfect right there. So I'm gonna continue on with the rest of the model. So now that the wash is dry on here, and you can see the definition all around and the muscle tone and everything like that on the front right there. And you can leave the socks. We just did this over a gray primer. So we left the socks, I think is what they call them down here at the bottom of the feet. We just left them gray and we did strong tone over it. You can keep gray anywhere you want because that's just kind of how horses are. Do a little bit of research, but I was like, hey, this is easy. I like easy. So that's why the bottoms of their feet there are gray. Now we're gonna go to the mid-range color. So we started out with Monster Brown, of course. That is where we're at with the wash of strong tone right here. Now we're gonna go to, what is this? It was backwards. Desert Yellow. There it is, Desert Yellow. So we've got a little bit of Desert Yellow mixed up in the airbrush. Now, if you're new to Army Painter, a quick gotcha right here. You can kind of see where I've squeezed out some of the paint onto this paper towel here. And the reason I did that was, you can see how the splatter pattern right here? That's because they put extra medium in each and every bottle. So the chances are that you get a bottle of paint off the store shelf and it's dried out are very, very low, because there's going to be a little bit of extra pigment or medium or whatever they put in here. I think it's a little bit of both that is going to keep it from drying out. Now you can squeeze out the liquid to whatever point you like the consistency of the paint, and then shake it up real quick. This has obviously settled and spread out throughout the paper towel right here, but you can see how it does have an adverse effect on the paint. So be aware of that. Don't just start shaking the paint and then you're like, oh crap, why is this in really, really hard condition to use? I put a little bit in the airbrush here with about 3 drops of flow improver to 3 drops of the actual paint itself. It'd be nice if Army Painter got some flow improver going, but right now we're going to use the Vallejo stuff until they do. Now we're using a 0.2 needle right here. This is a hardened Steenback Infinity 2-in-1 airbrush. You don't have to go that hard in the paint. You can get cheaper stuff. Spray Gunner has a ton of things. We've reviewed them here on the channel. This is about a $300 airbrush, but you can still get a 0.2 one out there, like the Krios, I think, is a 0.2. That looks like a good fit. So we're gonna get in here, and here's the trick. Get you a nice GMAC valve. This is completely shut off. I'm at about 30 PSI, so I'm gonna crank this from completely shut off to about right there. So this is in theory like around 20%, 20 PSI, give or take. And the problem with that is now, you're gonna see here, we need to add, we go from being milky to we need to be watery. And that's the trick to getting your consistencies up right here. So I'm gonna add a little bit more flow improver, use my buster brush. This is a brush that I have blown out. I go through any brush that blows out, just keep it, and you can use it to stir your pots of your airbrushes. There's never a bad brush. Now that our consistency is good, we're gonna do a little test spray right here just to make sure. Boom, there it is. We're just gonna get in here really tight and just focus on the areas that should be lighter, like the top of the thigh right here. and just gently squeezing back on the trigger. I'm pulling the trigger back. This is a dual action airbrush. I'm pulling the trigger back, and then I'm pushing down exactly where I want the pressure to be. That's one of the keys to airbrushing. It takes a lot of practice, but once you get it down, you can really put the brush, or the spray rather, the paint, where you want it to be. So make the paint work for you, don't work for the paint. And there you can see we've got all around that musculature right there. We started to bring it up. So I'm going to finish the rest of this model here, and then we'll come back and show you what it looks like for the first base coat. Okay, now that we'll call it highlight. Our first highlight is done. It's time to switch up. We're going to leave a little bit of that desert yellow in the pot, and then mix in a little bit of a banshee brown, which is kind of like a very paler color, but we're keeping the tone true here. So we're gonna make sure our PSI is right. Our mix is liquidy, watery, not milky, because our PSI is down so far. Get a good little test spray here. There we go. And we're just gonna go in at the tops, like I said, pull your trigger back and then push it down. That's what dual action's for. Otherwise, you're just doing a spray gun. And then you can get in there and hit all of those areas and really work the colors around those blends right there. So again, just going in, 0.2 needle, kicking on the compressor, making it work for us. So once you get that done all around your model, you have almost completed all of the super quick stuff, but the thing that everybody's going to notice first. So we did our base coat, we did our wash, we did our 2 layers. Now we need a glaze to pull all this together, because while the blends are pretty good, I'm super happy with these blends here. We can really pull out these blends and make them look even better with a little bit of the same tech we just showed you. So I grabbed a little of their strong tone, put it on a bottle cap paint palette here, and we're going to take that same quick shade wash mixing medium, except for instead of going 50-50 this time, we're going to make a glaze. So we're going hard in the paint here, and this is where it gets kind of weird. We're just doing a one shot here, so I don't really know how much to mix. So I'm gonna go hard, and then we can add a little bit. This is probably a little too hard right here for sure. So we've got quite a bit on here, and you can see as I pull it through the ridges, it does collect some in there. There's some depth to it, but it's not overpowering. So that might actually be on the top here a good glaze. It's just like that chocolate milk, but it's kind of like, you know, the milk that was in the cereal and it got all soggy because the cereal was in it, not exactly because you added chocolate syrup. So that's what I'm looking for here in my mind when I mix this stuff up. Don't ask me what comparison to make with the purple or the flesh tone washes, because that's just weird. So we're gonna go with the glaze here. Now, for this example, I am going to grab a stunt horse, one we haven't actually touched yet. This one was already airbrushed and already dry, so it's a little bit different of a pose, but the effects are still good here because we haven't done a glaze on it. Now, a couple different places of thinking here. You can either give it another gloss varnish if you want to protect. I would almost, if you're gonna step away and let this stuff dry, I would go ahead and hit it with a gloss varnish. And then come back and do this. But this is so minimal and stuff, it's kind of not gonna matter. So we're just gonna get in there and we're gonna go all over our surfaces, and it's nice and thin, so we don't have to worry about glit glops or Klingon. So I'm gonna cover the whole surface here with this glaze and then let it dry. So now that we have covered it in the glaze, you can see where it's already really starting to pop. Now, since we do have multiples here, I can kind of show you and compare the one we just airbrushed on the left to the one that is glazed on the right. And you can see it's got better contrast, got better definition, better blending, better pretty much everything. And it's not even dry yet. So that is kind of where we want to be. So airbrush is only half of it. You got to combine washes and glazes as well to get better effects. Now, the next step is actually the most time consuming, because you're gonna have to bring up your Death Rider here through all the grays. That's a separate tutorial. I'll link it in the comments below, so check that one out. But we got to paint all of this craziness here: cavalry swords, little saddles, blankets to actually put a blanket over the horse. I learned so much about horses painting this, believe me. The respirator, there's actually a mask here that isn't the horse itself. There's some sort of masking. There's armor plates here. You got the spear. There's all sorts of things. It's going to take time to base coat and go over. And unfortunately, we don't have that kind of time here because there's a hurricane approaching, but I wanted to knock out this content. So fast forward to the finished product. Now, this isn't quite the same tone. I used a little bit darker browns right here and probably a little bit more wash initially on my test figure here, but I'm still pretty happy with the this look right here. They're very similar, so they're gonna look fine in standing next to each other. Now here's the thing: to get in here and do all this detail work, if you primed it gray, you literally don't have to do any of this. I'll give you the color recipe breakdown here in a second and what washes to actually put over to get to this point right here if you want the total finished product tutorial. So starting at the top there, we have the Army Painter Plate Mail metal. All of the metals here were washed using that same technique I just showed you, 50-50 of the tone or the wash with 50-50 of the quick shade. However, this is actually half and half strong tone, dark tone. So you've got two different washes together with 50% wash, and that is slathered all over it, and it was good to go. Then the browns, the darker browns, or I guess they're lighter browns at this point, but when you put them on, they're going to be a lot lighter. Fur brown for all of the masking right here and the saddle and the pouches. That is going to be washed again with strong tone, just like we showed you on the original. You can experiment with 50-50 mix of quick shade, wash medium, and this. I think I just used straight strong tone for this particular example because you get a lot of depth just using straight strong tone here, because you can mix it up. You can do a little bit wash here, darker here, and things. Or conversely, to get this darker depth right here, where you have this lighter depth right here, you just add that 50-50 wash. So it's really kind of to whichever way you want to do. Or you could just go oak brown base coat and use the same wash over everything. It's pretty much up to you. Both will produce a very, very similar effect right there. So that's just kind of where you want to be as far as that goes. The line right here, I think, was just this straight Banshee brown back over it with a strong tone wash. So that worked out really well. And all of these cords and hoses and the gloves you'll see on the tutorial on how to do grays is literally just dark tone washed over the gray with no additional effort. So it's a very quick way to get in here. Oh, and this is weapon bronze from Army Painter as well. So it's a really quick way to get in here and do a lot of work and just give it a lot of shading after you spend that time base coating everything out. So you're about to hit the wall of work where you base coat everything out, but just power through and then come back and hit everything with those washes to give it that depth. And you really don't have to do any highlights. You're ready to go for the tabletop. You can come back, then highlight all of your stuff after that, and put a little black in there for the eyes too, just to give them that little kind of gas mask kind of look, a little creepy kind of, is it alive, is it dead horse kind of type deal. Reds we already showed you early on, and this again is that weapon bronze with a straight mix that I just told you about for the metal. So overall, a very, very easy way to shade your horses and then get the rest of your mans up to tabletop level. Oh, and this dirt is ochre. It's just the Army Painter ochre airbrushed on right there to simulate mud. But yeah, super easy, quick tutorial. I would show you how to base coat things and wash them as well, but like I said, there's no sense in boring you to death with that when you can check out the gray tutorial, which shows you a lot of those same techniques. And of course, unfortunately, we have a hurricane on the way, so we got to prep the studio and get ready, get everything locked down and get ready for all that here very, very shortly. So hope you enjoyed our tutorial on how to paint the war ponies. Really rich organic skin using a very light and kind of almost semi-undead kind of look, because of course these are the Death Riders of Krieg. They have to have pale horses to ride in. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Make sure you turn on notifications and hit that subscribe button to find more of our tutorials here on the channel.
Spiky bits.